Hello and thank you for tuning in to Pilot Savvy YouTube video. My name is Chris, owner of Pilot Savvy. In this video, we're going to discuss the hardware that I use to fly the Arabesque Diamond DA50RG X-Plane 11 version. So the previous video, I went over how to configure the buttons and knobs and switches on the Flight Sim X-Plane 11. And this is sort of an extension of that. I'm going to be more specific of what hardware I've used and how I've reconfigured those items. So you may have seen some other videos that I've produced for Diamond DA50, and you would have seen just the virtual aspect of them. So this is going to be more physical. So the overall, what I have is this is the Diamond DA50 Cessna G1000 panel with the Cirrus console and GCU stack. So you can see how they resemble one another. So you look at the Diamond aircraft, you have the G1000 suite. I don't have these standby instruments on it, but and then you look at the throttle quadrant. It's the same as the Diamond, and so you have that arrangement that's very similar. Everything is not in the exact spot, but there's a knob or a switch that manipulates all of this. So it's one of the things about the Diamond, the Arabesque, is they made sure that every single knob and button that you see on here is fully functional. I like that part of it. I actually found this aircraft by accident while looking for a Piper Arrow G1000, the X-Plane 11 version, but I wasn't able to find it. But I stumbled across this and said, "This is a Piper Arrow on steroids." So anyway, and another difference you'll see is the stick. This has a stick. The Diamond has a stick control. I use my honeycomb yoke to control it. Computer. So the computer system is a gaming system that I built just for the flight sim, and it's about 7 years or so old now, still hanging, and I figure I have about another year. I've done some upgrading over the years, and but it's been becoming more and more obsolete. So what I have is uh, Asus. Well, I started with the Asus X99 motherboard. I have a Intel i7 3.3 megahertz 6 core CPU, 64 gigabytes of RAM, uh, NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1070 8 gigabytes GPU, 1 terabyte spinning hard drive, a single 32-inch monitor, and I'll go over the equipment, um, the added components after that. But that's the gist of the PC that I have. It's just it's running Windows 10 Home. I started out with Windows 7, and I've done a lot of upgrading since then. The video card, I updated it. It started out with the GeForce card that only had 4 gigs of RAM. I don't remember the specific model number, but I'm thinking something like a 1040 or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. Um, so anyway, I traded it up for what I have now. Okay, so I hope that I'm able to keep everything in focus here. So this is the hardware panel that I have. So the G1000 suite mentioned, the honeycomb yoke, a Cessna panel, switch panel, this is what I use to control. This is a keypad, numbers keypad that I use to manage well, you see the recording on and off and multiple things, mainly the views. When I'm flying, I rest my hand here, sort of, by natural, and I use the arrow keys to control the direction. So 8 is the view that you saw earlier, and I'm sorry, 5 is the view you saw earlier. It gets the outside view and the cockpit in view. Then you have your arrows left, right, um, over the left shoulder, over the right shoulder, left 45 forward, left forward 45 degree angle, right forward 45-degree angle. So that allows you to do snap views for whatever you're doing. You're in a traffic pattern. You don't have to fumble around with the hat switch. That works in some occasions. So anyway, let me start with the knob. Well, let me continue overall and include the knobology. So what I've done is I changed the master switches on the uh, honeycomb yoke and made it alternator 2, alternator 1, alternator 2, electric master, um, avionics master, fuel transfer, emergency fuel pump, ESS bus, the FADEC auto and test, and Force B. All of these items are, you'll see, just go to Aerobask and download their Diamond 50 aircraft, and you'll see what I mean there. It's a competitive price along with the other aircraft that you'll find. Um, I have I reconfigured the ignition switch. Let me see if I can get a good angle there. Come in, focus, 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 Danielson. Here we go. Close enough. So I reconfigured these for the DI system. So I have the off. Don't know if you can see it in the video good. I have the off, normal, high de-ice positions. So just reconfigure it, and it's super easy to do. Just watch my video on how to make those changes. Uh, Originally, I configured this and I left it there. There's a story behind that, but let me lead up to that. So the ignition switch, uh, there is I reconfigured this. This is the standard Cessna, as you know. There, in the regular Cessna, on the Cessna aircraft, not a regular Cessna, is you have the off, left, right mags, and both, and start. So I reconfigured this to match the Diamond DA. So what you end up with is your off position, and then this is, think of that switch that you turn on, engine master, that you turn on and wait for the glow plug and then turn it to start. So I'm not going to move those now because the engine is running, and that's keeping my battery up where it needs to be. Don't use the master switch on this at all yet, but I can use those to toggle something on and off. You have your stall test. It toggles off and on. Stall test, gear test. Kind of blurry there, but get in focus. Focus, Danielson. Okay, alternate status, kind of blurry, but you can see it. And then de-ice pump, oxygen, emergency gear extension, and ELT. All of those are fully functional. It toggles them off and on. So the oxygen, I recently added the oxygen. There we go. It's focused now. I'm done, right? But let me just sweep across what I showed you earlier. And it's like when I move it, it doesn't focus. So I just recently configured this switch for an oxygen control. Earlier I showed you this on the handle. So what happened with the story behind that is, when I first got the Diamond aircraft, and real world I fly the Cessna and Piper aircraft. It's been a while, but when I last flew, um, I use you don't use oxygen. You pretty much fly. You keep it at around 6 or 8,000 feet, and even 9,000, a little higher, and you don't need oxygen. So as a result, when I started flying the Diamond aircraft simulator, um, I forgot about the oxygen thing. So I was fascinated that it could go up to what was that, 12, no, 20,000 feet. I follow the VFR rule, so it's limited to 18,000 as a VFR pilot. And so I climbed up to 16,000 feet and leveled off. And the next thing I knew, shortly thereafter, my screen went blank. So I was thinking that there was something wrong with the display. I actually slept on it and trying to figure out what was going on with my display. And then it dawned on me when I was laying in bed that, hey, dummy, oxygen, 16,000 feet, you need oxygen. So I got up the next morning and duplicated that flight, and started out with the monitor working okay. So that was part confirmation that it was an oxygen issue, maybe. Or it could have just been when I shut the system down and started back up, it started behaving correctly. But I went up to 16,000 feet, and sure enough, the screen just gradually blackened. Then I was thinking, okay, how do I turn the oxygen on with the blank screen? So there was no good way to do that, except come back down to a lower altitude in the blind. So using the hardware, I'm able to fly the plane still, and because it was my main display that was black only. So what I did, I descended down. Then I realized I got to do something about that. So that's when I configured this knob and button. I'm sorry. I configured this button to press to toggle the oxygen on. And up at that altitude, I did another test, and screen went blank, and I hit the oxygen, and that fixed the problem. And of course, after that, flights after that, I just turn the oxygen on before. Now this is more realistic than putting it down. The toggles, there's actually a knob that you pull to turn on oxygen in a diamond. It's overhead, so I just decided the knob is just as good, or the switch is just as good. Toggles it off and on. So anyway, moving along still. I went over this with you already. I went over this. So I modified the switch on the uh, Cessna instrument panel to just include the items that I need. So that it would be the brake. Yeah, there we go. That focus here. I'll try to get it to focus. But that's the brake switch. The knobs, they work great. The instrument panel um, dimmer knobs. PDOT heat, landing gear light, taxi light, position light, strobe light. They work great. This has flaps, but I don't use this flap lever. I'll show you why later. Landing gear. The D850 is retractable, so I do use this. I do not use this view selector. Let me move my mouse out of the way. With everything going, once I'm up and going, I never need the mouse unless I'm doing something specific like in flight. If I want to change some, I could actually configure a knob to toggle the equipment remover if I want. Let me do this here. Okay, that's more better. So I don't use the trim wheel either because I have this Cessna trim wheel. Originally, now this is the equipment that folds up in the armrest of the Diamond 50 real world and on the simulator. So you have to actually, click and unfold it to use it, and then store it when not using. Diamond has the what is that? The 47X instead of this. They both do about the same thing. The only difference is is that you have the keyboard that's different. So this has more. This is the QWERTY keyboard that you use on your computer. The other one is actually in alphabetical order. So the GCU 47X has like A B C D E F G and numeric in alphabetical order. This is more realistic to the keyboard. So you punch in all the information, and it's a a flight management system there that does a lot of things there that you could also do with the G1000. It just puts it all right here on. Then you have the autopilot. So the autopilot that comes with the Diamond 50 is the GFC 700, and I upgraded it to the GFC 500. So the only difference being the GFC 700, believe it or not, has less items. It does not have the heading track knob, and it does not have the uh, altimeter select, or I'm sorry, altitude select. Everything else it has. So not quite sure why I ended up in that order. Let me move this mouse out of the way and show you the other stuff. So the trim wheel you saw earlier, that would normally be in the back of the throttle quadrant. So I use the Cirrus throttle quadrant. So I just relabeled it. So here we have, get a good angle. There we go. Sort of kind of. So the Cirrus has two positions: has up, uh, takeoff, and landing, and that's it. Back up. So all I had to do was configure this. Well, actually, there was no configuring, no reconfiguring required for this um, flap lever. All I had to do was change the speeds. So in the Diamond, the takeoff speed is 130. Oh no, sorry, takeoff flap speed is max of 133, and the landing flap position has a max of 121 knots. And so that's all I had to do on that. And you get your lights and so forth. Actually, I need to turn something on. I think I have something that's not plugged in because the lights would be on. But I'm not worried about that so much right now for this video. So now we have your throttle. So the throttle, it's the same as the Diamond, pretty close to the same, complete with toggle switch. I don't use that. I manually do my go around stuff, and I just kind of keep it simple. You have a Diamond does not have a mixture control, so I covered up this panel, and later on I may go in extra paint. You'll see some things that I covered up here. It's not really an eyesore. It's a simulator that I use and only, and I know what that is. It's fully functional. That's my main concern. So then you have your, so this is out back, mixture is back and out of the way and not used ever. The Diamond aircraft has the emergency, the fuel control wire. Earlier I mentioned I don't use the fuel control fuel selector on the Cessna panel. It's because I use this one, and I just relabeled it. I covered up one of the off positions that's used in the Cirrus, and the Diamond only has the emergency aux tank, 24 gallon, and the normal 25 gallon for the what would be the left tank. So yeah, it's the left tank and the off position. So those are the only three. Okay, I think I just killed my engine by doing that, and I did. It's confirmed. So anyway, um, one of the so I modified that with the gallons and the labeling um, for for the Diamond. Then for the for the Cirrus, you have the boost pump and prime switch. Now I don't use any of that. You don't use any of that for the Diamond. However, this is in the perfect position, the exact position pretty much for the cowl flaps. So I relabeled it, cowl flaps open and closed, and it works perfectly. Cowl flaps open, cowl flaps closed. And so that's that for the throttle. Then the only other thing I have here is the rudder pedals. I use the Cessna rudder pedals. I had Thrustmaster, the lowest end Thrustmasters, and I recently those broke. So I went recently in about the past maybe month and a half or so ago. I replaced them with the Logitech rudder pedals. Used to be called the Cessna rudder pedals. Um, they're spread out little more than the ones I used to, but I noticed in the Diamond aircraft they're spread out a little bit more than the Cessna, so this works out. And then here in the middle you have the tension control, so you can adjust it. So if you fly a different aircraft, then you can adjust that to the feel of the rudders in that particular aircraft. I haven't flown a Diamond yet in real world, but something tells me that in the near future I may get a chance to do so. So that I like the feel of this. Is actually a step up from the ones that I had. The response and everything is better on these. It's a smoother feel when you're pressing them. When you're steering on the ground, it's a lot smoother. Um, so that's it for the panel. Oh, the I actually attached everything to a Walmart $14 desk that I got, oh wow, more than 20 years ago. It's a fold up desk, but it just so happened to be the exact width, perfect width for a flight sim. So, flight sims. Um, there's some debates for and against flight sims. I've had some debates with flight instructors, and this was some years ago when the flight simulators nowhere near as capable as what we have today. I think they've come a long ways. My day job is a computer tech, and I've seen technology really, it pretty much doubles every year. Is the basic rule of thumb, and it's found its way into the aviation community, and it actually allows you to integrate a lot of real world stuff with actual aviation. Like for instance, you can manually put the weather in, um, or you can plug in real world weather. It'll tap into the weather service, and it'll duplicate that weather for you. That's typically what I like to. That gives you a big advantage. I have the global, all of the airports globally plugged in there. That's available anyway, and that's the majority of the airports worldwide. I have them plugged in here, so I could actually fly anywhere in the world. I pretty much keep it around the area that I fly in the real world. That gives me more practice. Now, this simulator is set up for a Diamond aircraft. You can set it up for any. My preference is to set it up for the aircraft that you're going to be flying normally, but I haven't been doing much flying lately at all. So it doesn't matter. If I go back to flying a Cessna regularly, then I may reconfigure it for a Cessna. But a good way, if you want to, if your goal is to increase your flying skills, if you're taking flight lessons, it's probably better to set it up for that plane. X-Plane 11 is more realistic. Microsoft Flight Sim, um, it's got some prettier graphics, maybe. But when I'm flying Flight Sim, I'm not doing it to enjoy the scenery. I'm doing it to simulate real flight. So that's just my personal opinion. I've provided support for people, pilots who, and aviation enthusiasts who wants the scenery. They want to fly and look for their house. You probably will not see your house in X-Plane, at least not X-Plane 11. I haven't checked out X-Plane 12. That, my understanding, has some better graphics, but again, that's not my goal with the graphics. Graphics take up rendering. Um, the cost. You notice as I mentioned earlier that I actually build my own flight simulators. That saves me a lot of money. So I don't go buy a sim that's got a lot of stuff on it that I don't need. What I do is I get a shopping list of what's needed for what I'm using it for, and then I buy those components and I assemble and configure them myself. If you don't have that expertise, then you're going to need to have someone to build it for you. Of course, I'll be more than glad if you tell me what you want. Just respond to this, leave a comment, and I'll tell you what you need to make that work. But it's oh, one of the things, another, the aircraft. So there are literally hundreds of aircraft that you can include in different sceneries. One of the mistakes I made when I first started flight sims is we was talking about scenery earlier. I was just up the scenery. I saw this free scenery software, so I just started loading it on. And it's no difference than if you was to get a desktop computer for office work and you start loading up a bunch of programs. It's going to slow it down. So I kind of ended up, knee deep in scenery apps, and it was slowing my system up more and more. So I actually kind of had to blow all of that stuff away and start over fresh. So it's a good idea to find out what you want, load that up, and don't veer too far off the beaten path. So cost. That's one of the ways I save is by building my own, and or if you're not going to build your own, um, have someone else to build just what you need. Just be specific with the tech that you consult about what you're going to do. And there are a lot of systems that out there that claim to be advertised as gaming systems. Look at those specs. They're not really gaming systems. So that's what I found out. So I built my own. Anyway, the hardware. So none of what you see here was purchased full price. If you are able to do that, more power to you. But all of it has some sort of blemish. Except I do have some stuff that I bought. So the yoke I purchased. It actually, I actually replaced one that I had that was that broke. So it was a Satec before they was bought out by Logitech. So I had it some years, and it broke. The throttle quadrant, I had another throttle quadrant. It broke, and I replaced it with another one. Um, as I mentioned earlier, the yoke, the rudder pedals, they broke, and I replaced them. And all of the other stuff. Oh, the panel here, I bought this some years ago. This is from um, before I started using X-Plane 11. I actually was using Microsoft Flight Sim 10, and this was compatible with that, and it turns out to be compatible with X-Plane 11 as well. Actually, I started out X-Plane 9, and then 10 and 11 and on and up. So I'm a long time fan. Yeah, this has blemishes. This has blemishes. Um, this has blemishes. Well, this don't have blemishes. The I don't know. You may have seen this when I was showing a video of this. You may have seen some of the blemishes on this here, and but it all has blemishes. Some I covered up. So the way you can get equipment with blemishes is my priority is that it functions. I can make it look pretty, and in some cases I don't care if it doesn't look pretty. Like the tape that I have on the console, the throttle quadrant. I don't care about the tape being there. I'm not focusing on tape. It works. It functions. So you can contact some of the vendors and go to their website. And in a lot of cases, when things are made, it may have blemishes. They'll fix it, but it may have blemishes. Like the G1000 here has holes drilled in, so obviously that was made at one time, and it has bleed through, and you may or may not have seen the bleed through when I had the camera closer to it, but that's something that cannot be sold at full price. So that you could take advantage of that. Some companies have year-end sales, but just go on the internet and Google flight sim equipment and go to their websites and check out what they have. eBay. I've sold lots of equipment um, before this that allowed me to upgrade to this. I sold some equipment over the years. Like I mentioned, a video card that I updated. I started out with I think a 1040. I'm just guessing, going off memory, what it was, but I sold it on eBay, and then I went and bought another one, an upgraded one on eBay. And what I did, taking a chance on especially electronics, but Flight Sim has a equipment has a really good retail or resale value. So I looked at the ratings of the person I was buying it from, and I did not see any complaints. And I know that that person, they were ethical, appeared to be ethical, and I went with the assumption that it was probably going to be okay, and that if it wasn't, then I could return it and probably hassle free. That person would do everything they can working with me to get it up and going, and if it can't, I had no doubt, I had very little doubt as to if the person was going to honor the return policy. So I've never had to return it, and the one that I sold, I keep my equipment in really good condition. I have periodic maintenance that I do on them. I get in there, I blow the dust out of my stuff. So if you see something, you may see some of my equipment on eBay. Like I have some multiple vendors there. Like I didn't obviously I didn't sell the old one, but I have some other equipment like from Prop Watch Flight Sim that I probably won't use again. Is not absolutely nothing wrong with it. So you may see it and you may be able to figure out that, hey, that's from Pilot Savvy. Know that I used it on my flight sim in conjunction with other vendor hardware, and I've gotten just kind of um, moved on to some different equipment. It's absolutely nothing wrong with that equipment. You walk into you look in the cockpit of any typical trainer aircraft. That's what you're going to see. That type of equipment. Just because they have a G1000 out there doesn't mean that everyone is going to go fly a G1000. The airplanes that I fly regularly, when I fly, is not a G1000. It's your steam gauge plane, and it may have the autopilot that I have on here. This autopilot used in this is popular with Cessna aircraft, Cessna and Piper aircraft. So this gives me training on that. Another thing, speaking of real world flying, the this X-Plane 11 is compatible with the ForeFlight. ForeFlight is an iPad app, and iPad and iPhone. They allow you to put a license to put it on both, and it's a really good, awesome electronic flight bag. It has them. You sit down and you plot a course. It gives you all the information you need on it. You have all of the the old days would be to go into a pilot lounge and to file a flight plan, and but you don't have to do that anymore. You can sit down right there and you're at your aircraft on the flight line and make a complete flight plan. That's a real popular one. If you get a chance the next time you're at the airport, even a large airport, you're getting ready to hop on the airline flight, um, chances are you're going to see if you get a chance, you're going to see the airline pilots have ForeFlight as well. So that's real awesome. And you plug it in, and it syncs with X-Plane 11, and it has your position. It'll put your position, your virtual position, on the iPad. So next thing, talking radio. One of the things that I struggled with most when I first started flying was the radio communication. So the radio, talking to tower, that was intimidating initially, but I'm fortunate enough to be in the SoCal area, which is very busy, and you really can't fly a kite in Southern California without talking to someone on the radio. So I've gotten over that fear, and except maybe the LA area, I like to take someone along to keep an eye on things. It can get pretty busy, and but in San Diego, it's you know more company. Talking to ATC, that's probably not a good thing to become complacent. So I try not to become complacent, and that's when things happen. There's a service called Pilot Edge, and that allows you to talk to real life air traffic controllers. Now there's another one. There's a freebie, VATSIM, and so you can go to their site, see what they have to offer. But the one that I prefer is the Pilot Edge, and they're real controllers, and they man the towers, and you tune in to the frequency that's on your FAA charts. So you call the tower, you want to talk to the tower, you look at your chart and you see what, and publications, and see what the tower frequency is, and you're going to talk to a live controller, an actual controller. Some do it moonlighting, some are retired, and they just want to keep controlling traffic, and it makes it that much more realistic. Build a flight sim that's to within your budget and need, and of course, if you have a rich uncle, then go for it. I know I've seen flight sim as much as, I think the most expensive one I seen was for a home sim. It was you'll see them in garages or whole rooms that are taken up by like a airline cockpit, and those go up to I've seen those priced at like 65,000. It's either someone buying it that's already made from someone who's just tired of flying it, or they build them themselves. It's going to come out to about the same. So look at 65,000. Now, when you get into building simulators like that, or any sim really, so building a sim, you're part handyman, part tech, part electrician. So those are the combinations there, because you build the frame, um, you put the components in there, you pick out the components, you put them in there, you program them, and you wire them. I mean, you install them, wire them, and program them. So those are the things you're looking at. So I probably went over the time I wanted to on this video, so I'm going to do some follow-up videos, and I think you'll like that. So I'm going to do more flying and maybe more of an explanation of the flights instead of you just following me along. So thank you for tuning in here. If you have any questions, comments, leave a comment. If you like the video, leave a thumbs up. And if you don't, leave a thumb down, but leave a comment telling me why. Either way, why you like it, why you dislike it. And the subscribe, and you'll be notified of any videos, new videos that I produce and publish. So, Chris with Pilot Savvy, thank you.